Today we've got Brum on the workbench, a toy grade, advertised as 7-channel RC. He's a little over 20 years old. It has some problematic parts inside. It does not have a controller. We're going to upgrade it to hobby grade electronics for the purpose of getting him working again, starting right now. So here's an overview of what we're going to be doing. These stock electronics right here are going to be replaced with these aftermarket electronics. This gearbox, which makes the car pivot on his chassis and wiggle the headlights, has a locked up motor. And this is on a motor. We're going to convert that to a servo. That moves his headlights back and forth. This is the gearbox for making the car go, and either the gears or the motor is locked up. There's no rotation here, no matter how rough you are on it. And in here we have a servo, I think a servo with mini wires that runs the steering. We're going to have to convert that to a 3-wire servo. This car is advertised as 7 functions: left, right, forward, backwards, move the lights, wiggle the car, and sound. There's a speaker. We'll come back to that. We would only count that as hobbyist as 5 functions, because left and right we would just call steering, forward and backwards we would just call throttle. We're going to start with this gearbox that runs the headlights and spins this device here to make the car wiggle. I took the screws out off screen, and here's what we've got inside. This motor here is completely frozen, does not turn at all. It's a 130 with a gear on each end. I went ahead and snipped the leads off of it and soldered them onto this motor with a JST plug, and I need to take these 2 gears and put them on here and drop it back down in there. So I transferred the gears over to the new motor, and it sits down in there like that. And then this cover goes back on. I'm going to put some lubrication on here, put this together, put the screws in, and then we're going to address this top section that controls the headlights. I'm doing a little bit of this on screen, a little bit off. I don't want this to be a 2-hour video, so feel free to leave a comment if I'm showing enough, folks, or if I'm showing too much. I've got this wired up, and here's what I've done. I've got my battery running to an ESC, and I have this ESC plugged into channel 5. I'll explain that here in a minute. And then I have this auxiliary switch running to the motor that we just installed. I was going to replace this with a servo. The motor in here that operates it is good. I don't have enough clearance for a servo, unfortunately. So I'm going to use an ESC to control this motor. And so what will happen when I turn channel 5 back and forth, the headlights will move back and forth. And then I have this auxiliary switch on channel 6. So when I turn this knob, the motor that's loud. The motor we installed will run. I'm going to install it in the car and then we'll retest it. Okay, the next gearbox we're working on here is to run the wheels. And to get it apart, I had to pull one of the wheels off. And I've got the screws apart already because I wanted to see what kind of motor it had in it. So I'm going to slip this off here, show you what we got. There we go. Then I've got a screw in here so the other half doesn't fall off for the video, because it did once and it took me a long time to get those gears put back together. So anyway, I put them back together and they're lubricated. This motor just snaps down in there. The two holes where there would normally be screws, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, there's a couple of pins in there that just slide into those screw holes to keep it from rotating. I think this is a 260. I don't know any of the specs on it. I went ahead and moved the gear off of it onto a motor that was in my WPL box that looks to be the same dimensions. I don't know if it's the same specifications regarding RPMs and such. We'll just have to see how it runs. So I'm going to solder a lead onto this, snap it in there, screw the cover back on, and then I'll be back with you and we'll test it out and see if it runs. So the next step is to get the steering to work. I don't really know what we have going on here. We've got 6 wires that run the steering. I've never seen anything like that before. This looks like a servo horn moving the steering rack back and forth, but that does not look like a servo. That looks like the end of a DC motor. So I don't know. We're going to take the top off and I'll show you what we've got. So it appears all that stuff in the gearbox is electronics that is their version of an ESC. So I cut off all those extra wires and I hooked up my own ESC to channel 1, and it moves the steering when I turn the knob. However, it doesn't self-center. Now the car itself has a device built into it to self-center, which I haven't seen it done that way before. I'm going to install this box back in the car and see if it steers and see if it self-centers. If it doesn't, then I'll have to decide if I'm just going to live with it that way or junk all this and put in a servo. So here's where I ended up on the steering. I've got everything bolted back into place. Here's my wire from the steering motor going into my ESC receiver battery. I got my controller on. It does steer properly. It's a little noisy. I'm not sure how that sounds on camera, but in person, it's pretty noisy. So for the sound, this is the strangest part of the entire project. This is the control board for the car, the original. Controlled all of the functions. and we don't need it anymore because we have every function of the car switched over to modern electronics except for sound. So I figured if I damaged this board, I haven't lost anything. The car will still operate. So what I did is I just started touching power to everything until finally I found sound. And here's what we've got. I'm turning that on and off with an auxiliary switch hooked to my Dumbo RC. And on the original car, I do not know if the sound was continuous or if you could turn it on and off. Based on the number of advertised functions, I believe you could turn it on and off. So that's what we've got. It doesn't sound great. I've watched old videos of this car and it didn't sound great there either. I think that's just what you get. I could put a better sound system in it, but trying to keep it an original uh, vehicle as close as possible. That's what we're going to get. Here he is, folks, all finished up and running. I'm going to get my camera up on a stand and I'll give you a little demonstration. All right, here he is. Here's running, and I get you a good front view here because that's where all the action is. If you're not familiar with the movie, this guy actually was personified. He didn't have a driver. He was like his own little person. And something I didn't point out earlier, these axles are tilted so that when the wheels turn, he tilts. Try to give him a little, I think, a little personality. And he can look around. And he can wiggle around, get a little attitude, get excited. That's him. This video is pretty long. I just wanted to show you he was together and worked. I'm gonna call it good for now. I will have a run video made with him, and I will put that in the description of this video once it's done. It's not there yet, possibly, but it will be in the near future. Thanks for watching. If you like this old stuff, if you like Brum, please consider hitting the like button. I appreciate it. You have a good rest of the day.